Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V. It's been a long time since we have been on where we are intentional about connecting you with entrepreneurs that have overcome and want to provide value to the audience. Um, so it's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses how to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. Caitlin, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's nice and early over here on the Pacific side of the country.
So now tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Perfect. My name is Caitlin, and I am an online finance coach for business owners who are motivated to understand and protect their financial future by optimizing their time running their business and improving their profits. That comes from a strong background in corporate finance. So I actually worked at a large tech company, several banks, an asset management firm, a wealth management firm, and even a joint venture firm in China, where I gained all of this corporate finance experience. And through that experience, I just felt a tug on my heart the entire time that I have a passion, and I truly believe that I was meant to start my own business and to help fellow business owners with their finances. See, in corporate finance, we're taught very specific strategies and specific processes that are known to provide billion, trillion-dollar results, right? These companies don't get to $1 trillion without knowing their finances and without having a structured process in place. And unfortunately, many small business owners don't have access to the quality professional who can walk them through that and help them along their journey. So that's where I come in.
You know, it's interesting what you say about making sure that the small business owner is really thinking like the corporate, right? Because the reality is that a lot of times, whenever we go into business for ourselves, and I watched this video this morning on YouTube about this. How people go into business and they want to, get the and not that you in order to scale, of course, in order for you to be $1 million company, you have to have people who are helping you with that, right? But you want to make some money on the front end before you actually have somebody to help you, right? And people go into it with that minimalist mindset that I have to have all these things without providing the value, right? And then they don't succeed, right? 50% of small businesses just don't succeed. And so I'm so glad that there's two reasons. Number one, you have gained the knowledge and you have taken that knowledge outside of your corporate world, right? And you are now providing that value to someone else. That is invaluable in itself. And I think that when we think of it like that, I'm just so super glad that you are here to provide that value. So tell us a little bit about what exactly you provide.
Yes, and thank you for bringing into this. So I provide for small business owners a financial strategy process, and part of that comes down to knowing our numbers, right? So as a business owner, we want to grow to, let's just say, $100,000.
Right.
This theoretical company. How can we possibly grow to $100,000 if we don't know where we are today? People sometimes have like a vague mindset, or they're managing cash flow. So they're looking at their cash flow every single month. But in order to optimize your profit, you actually have to know the accounting, know the finance strategy to put that cash flow into a profit format, right? And so those are based on all of these policies. So that's why a lot of people want to try to do it themselves. But what they end up doing is just looking at cash flow, which is a completely different mindset. And it changes the way that you look at business. You're looking at it from a cash flow standpoint. Like, today I'm going to look at the cash. I'm going to try to manage my cash, try to get to the next month. And that's the mindset they end up with, as opposed to how do I look at my profit and optimize that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Because, the reality is that when we are in business, we have to make sure that we are that planning, right? That planning out. A lot of business owners, that book, Profit First, it kind of really changed my heart when it came to that, because one of the things that it did was it taught us to really be intentional about, number one, paying ourselves first, but number two, not just looking at the bank account, really looking at your numbers. And that's one of the things that I'm very intentional about every morning. So what numbers are you speaking about whenever you say numbers?
And that's a good question. So, for example, I just had a call with one of my clients, and one of the first things that we go through is we get our revenue into the spreadsheet that I made for her, and I do this with all my clients, where we look at revenue and cash flow side by side. Now, this is critical because it gives us this perspective, and as we're doing it, we can see the differential, right? Someone's paying ahead of time for certain products, so that's the cash, but then the revenue stream lasts for months at a time. So it's like someone will be getting classes or getting a service that they had paid for before, so you end up having to continue to give that service. So looking at revenue next to cash flow is like one of the first things that we do. After we get that set up, then we look at our cost of sales, our gross margin, our all of those financial indicators, so the profitability margins, which are critical for us to assess like our day-to-day, like how well we're doing. The way finance strategists really rely on profit margins to see if we're doing as well as the industry average or better. And so when you can assess yourself according to those kinds of profit margins and to the people next to you, it really helps to align our strategy, right? Because if we're doing worse, we want to shift our strategy to get to what the industry standard is. If we're doing better, then we know that we can keep kind of going on this projection.
So when you say cash flow and revenue, so explain the difference between the two.
Perfect. So I'm going to use a Pilates and yoga studio as an example.
Okay.
Let's just say that someone paid for 10 classes in January and they paid $1,000.
Okay.
And they only used 2 of those classes in January. So from a cash flow perspective, we see $1,000. But from a revenue perspective, they only made $200 in January. So when we're optimizing for paying our expenses and stuff, there's a totally different mindset for looking at cash flow and for looking at managing our expenses. For example, we might be tempted to use that full $1,000 to immediately be paying bills. But when you look at it from a revenue standpoint, we're going to want to try and only pay as much as the revenue that we've made. Because there is this fundamental thought that there's a liability that we might need to pay them back for some reason. And so we don't want to spend that cash.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so now, what are some other things that you teach in the course?
And I'm glad that you brought this up, and I'm so happy what you said earlier too, where we talked about being a small business owner. So that's where I can actually really add value because I am also a small business owner. Now, I'll tell you my story. So I did corporate finance. I learned all of the strategy that we know, all of the things that we know will make a business succeed. The second I started my own business, I almost threw it out the door for the first year, all of that strategy. And you know why? I adopted that same mindset that you talked about with small business owners where they are like, I need my cash. I just want to do what I need to do now to make money now. I'm not going to really look ahead to the future. I'm going to I just really held on to that cash instead of investing it in ways that will help me to grow my profits. And what happened is a year later, I ran out of money. I had thousands of dollars that I could have invested appropriately, but because I didn't actually have the experience that I do now of being a small business owner and learning what you really need to invest in, I ended up running out of money that first year. But now, years later, getting the coaching that I need, investing in the ads that I need to pay, all of that stuff, it's changed everything completely. So in addition to talking about finances, there's this added layer of, as a small business, there are struggles. Like, struggle is real, you know? So here's how we can, here are some other things that we've learned along the way to help you.
I love it. So now, if you were to talk to yourself, okay, when you first came out of corporate and went into business for yourself, what are some of the things that you would say to yourself?
The first thing is to find a quality coach. And keep in mind, the coaching industry is unregulated and there's a lot of people who will not help you but will take your money. So that's tough. But you have to find a coach. And if you invest in some people that let you down, you just got to take it as a write-off and you just got to move on and keep looking for that coach. You're going to end up spending money that doesn't get you the right coach, but when you do find that right coach, it'll make all the difference. That is a game changer. Just the support, the knowledge that you learn, and everything. Also, it's the fact that I'm expecting people to invest in my business. How can I expect them to invest in my business if I'm not willing to invest and get the help that I need?
That is golden advice. Because I too, and I will forever invest in coaching, forever. And the reason why I will forever invest in coaching is number one, it has changed my life. Okay. And I think that a lot of times we go to, we go to school, and I am degreed up, right? Go to school, get all these degrees, and it's almost mockery. I mean, honestly, right? Some of the things I had to get a degree in. So as a nurse, of course, I had to get a degree in nursing, right? In order to become a nurse. And so there are certain things that I didn't learn. But let me tell you something. Everything that was past my BSN, I really honestly feel like that it was not as needed for me in order to be able to run this business, in order to be able to be an amazing nurse at the time, in order to be an amazing entrepreneur, right? It really was not beneficial to me. The second thing is the fact that you said that in order for you to, and you felt like people will invest in your coaching services, you can't imagine anybody else doing it if you're not going to do it yourself. You just
Exactly.
can't imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, when I come into my coaching calls, when I come into my discovery calls, I don't come into my discovery calls. Number one, I know what my product delivers. I know the end result, right? But not just that. I know that I have invested. I know that I have provided that for myself. And so if you want to get to that point, if you want to get where I am, then the investment is imperative. And I think it's interesting how we spent, and I say this all the time. I went to doctoral school. I went to get my doctorate in nursing practice. And when I went to get my doctorate in nursing practice, you know what I learned? I learned theory, and I learned how to edit a paper, and I learned tenacity. Okay. So I learned discipline, right? But I had that discipline the entire time. I did not, other than that, those were the things that I learned. And so I think that I know that when you left corporate and you came out into this world, and I saw a TikTok yesterday. It said, "Your job is not to be your job forever."
Yeah.
Your job is for you to learn and go out and provide that value to someone else. So I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing.
That's
So,
awesome.
so is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience today?
There's so much, but as we're on this topic of coaching, I do want to say one of the things, like when you read a finance textbook, it'll tell you right away one of the biggest ways to grow like GDP, like for the whole economy or a business, is to invest in the education of your employees, right? So at the large tech company that I worked for, they offer tons of free education because they know that getting your people educated is the surest path to success, the surest path to profitability. And so here we are trying to do our own business. It's important for us to invest in education. We're going to have a couple, of the dud classes, But let me tell you, when you find that right coach, like you, right? I mean, these coaches are bosses. We're bosses. I mean, we really have gone through this the fire to get where we're at. I mean, we didn't get here by just being loosey goosey. I mean, there might be some people who do that on the side. We don't need to work with them, but when you do find the person that you enjoy working with, I mean, they know their stuff. They've been through it.
Love it. I love how, I used to feel uncomfortable with people asking me a bunch of questions on the discovery call, but I look at it very differently after I have been to coaches who were not necessarily so good, right? We provide how long is your coaching program?
I do a 12-week coaching program. I do a 12-week group coaching program, or I do an annual membership to my bookkeeping. So then that's direct access to me for a whole year.
Oh, I love it. So now the 12-week the 12 weeks. So now what does that provide for your clients?
So I get my group coaching clients in, and we actually go through a range of things. Not only do we end up with a awesome financial plan at the end of it, but every single piece of that financial plan, my customers understand and can use, because we go through every single different part of that financial plan from the perspective of a CEO for your own business, right? So when we're the CEO of our business, we have to be looking at our numbers. We have to be looking at our margins and understanding it. And so it's basically, we do create that financial plan, but we also learn how to look at it from the perspective of a CEO. So if anyone's ever like looked at numbers that their accountant gave them and just been like, I don't know what these numbers mean. And I know that those happen because I've seen people who've shown me their financial statements that have been done by an accountant that were wrong. Just like you look at it immediately, you're like, this is wrong. And it comes from knowing your margins and understanding these things. Like you can look at something and immediately know whether it's correct. And so these people have paid like thousands of dollars for accountants to do their financial statements, and it's literally wrong just immediately. And it's because they didn't get the training on how do I look and immediately know whether they provided me quality work.
I love it. So
Yeah.
now so once you go through the program, do you just provide that extra layer of coaching, on ongoing for a year?
Exactly. And also, like, a big part of this that's driving it is my passion that I want people to understand and to come out empowered. So it's like if any of my people have questions ever, I encourage them to ask me and to like sit down and we'll figure it out, because it's so important to know that money aspect.
Yeah, because I think that the money conversation is an uncomfortable conversation for some people.
Yeah.
It is very uncomfortable. And the reality is that we are not going to survive as a small business if you don't have that conversation.
Exactly right.
I mean, as a big business, you can't survive without having the money conversation. And so it is huge, huge, huge that we are taking care of our money. And one of the things that I do whenever I get up in the morning is I'm very intentional about those numbers. I look at the numbers and then I look back over the last 3 to 4 months to identify trends. But I can't identify the trends if I don't know what my numbers are, right?
Exactly. And that's what we talk about is the trends. To create our financial plan, right, we want to look at where we've been. So we've got to, now that it's January, it's the end of January, it's a perfect time to get your full year, last year's just profit statement, just looking at it. And then you can project out this year. Like, how do I expect to go this year based on last year? And what changes am I going to make to get to the income that I want?
Yeah, I love it because I have a coach and she talks about the tweaks, right? She talks about the combination lock, right? And she says that it's just sometimes it's just a small tweak, right? Eric Thomas, he has this. He says that it was until he said the saying, it. What did he say? He said when you want to succeed as much as you want to breathe. He
Yeah.
said that was the thing that literally catapulted him, right? So that was just a small tweak. He just changed his verbiage and what he was saying. And then literally, he said, I've been doing this for 20 years. He said, y'all just found out about me today, right? And see, and a lot of people, what they don't see is the undergirding. They don't understand, see the work that you do as an entrepreneur prior to getting on these platforms, prior to coming here, right? It's a lot of work to be done. But once you get that work in and you get it done, oh, it's a game changer for
You're
you and your family.
That's huge what you just talked about, like having that long-term perspective. So like when I started my business, right, it was years of just seeing nothing, right? And many of my friends and family asked me like, oh, well, you haven't succeeded yet, just go back to your job. But coming from this finance perspective, you're not in a finance world, when we create a business plan, we're not expecting that business to make money for a minimum of 18 months. So if we have that perspective going forward where we're like, we're going to keep trying and expect that for 18 months, we're not going to get there yet, that's huge, because then you really start getting that passion and being like, wait, it's been 18 months. It's been totally dry. I've got to make this work, you know?
And it's every day. It's literally every day, just waking up. I wake up, a lot of people know my routine. I wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I wake up 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm very intentional about my morning. I pray, we talk to God first, because I can't talk to other folks because, they might make me mad. And then I got to answer with a God answer as opposed to what Viola would answer. Right. And so then after I do that, then of course looking at my numbers, and then of course exercising, and making sure that I'm eating right and doing the things that I should do. But yeah, it is important that we are intentional about our mornings. It's important that we are intentional about our revenue and cash flow and things of that nature, so that we can be profitable. Period. Point blank in this story. So.
Absolutely. Huge.
So are there anything else that you want to tell us about your program? Because you're offering a discount. Am I correct about that?
Yes. For anyone who's listening today, and if you let me know that you heard about my program through this podcast video, I'll give you 10%. So really happy about that. And I'll also leave you with like 2 just high-level tips. And this is something that many business owners know intuitively, but I want to tell you from the framework of the corporate finance world, right? So in corporate finance, we look at trends and we identify what works. And one of them I already said, investing in education. Businesses do it, trillion-dollar corporations do it because it works. That grows your profits. And number 2, I know that people are like, I don't want to spend the money on advertising. I want to keep it for operations. But let me tell you, what will make or break your business is getting your advertising up to 20% of your projected revenue. That will make or break your business. So, and that involves a mindset shift of not looking at advertising as something that's reducing your profits as an expense, but instead looking at it as an investment that will grow your revenue.
So now say that one more time, because you roll past me like you didn't say what you just said. Okay. So what did you just say? Okay. You said your advertisement is what now? Should be what?
You want to invest in your paid advertising at 20% of the revenue that you want to make. So if someone wants to make $100,000, they've got to get their mindset to be, I'm going to invest $20,000 in advertising. That will make or break your business.
Wow, that's some good stuff right there. That's some good stuff, because that is definitely a mind shift. Okay, because I mean that $20,000, and I remember my coach saying that very same thing, and I was like, anybody got $20,000? Now it's a different it's a different game, but thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that.
It's the make or break, and it's a mindset shift. And I went through that, right? When I started my business, I didn't want to spend the money, and it broke my business. And I'm letting everyone know to help you, 20%.
I love it. Love it. So, where can people find you at, Caitlin?
You can find me at my main domain name. They both come to the same website, is Sampson, SAMPSON12.com. But you can also find me at Caitlin-web.com. They both go to my main website, just two different ways to remember me. And so it's KATELYN-WEBB.com.
And so whenever they go to the website, now how it's clear on the website how they need to get to the 10%, or do they just need to reach out to you personally for the 10%?
Good question. Just reach out to me. There should be a contact me button. There's also a link to my free Facebook page. So if you have Facebook, you can just message me and say, I was watching Dr. Viola's podcast, and I would like to learn more. So.
Sweet. So thank you, Caitlin. You have been wonderful. I love you.
Yeah.
We are accepting in our coaching program, of course, it's for nurses or coaches. We will be starting another cohort, not really cohort. We accept a couple of people a month into our coaching program. And it leads nurses to working from them computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time. So if this interests you, we can jump on a call to gain you clarity. You can sign up at vpnursing.com. And again, we are here to connect you with other entrepreneurs that have overcome to provide value to our audience. We're shifting the narrative a little bit. It used to be a little bit different, but now we're shifting the narrative. So thank you, Caitlin, for coming and providing that value, because it's key. All right,
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.